So this is going to be our panel on seed breeding. I'm Dan. I'm with Rebel Grown. We're one of the presenters of the event. So first, either way, we're really proud to be, part of this event. And one thing that I really wanted to do is to contribute to the education. I wanted to share a lot of information about cannabis breeding and genetics. And so I wanted to put together a group of who I thought was the best representation of integrity and values and sustainability and organics in the Emerald Triangle. And people are going to have the most knowledge of cannabis genetics. So that's me. And I basically got the representations from the groups that I really, felt had the most offer to the community, and were localized and have a deep passion and knowledge for cannabis. So we got Mean Gene from Freeborn Selections aficionado. We've got Mike from the Emerald Cup Genetics, and we've got Brian from the Emerald Family Farms. I'll let these guys do a little introduction and talk about what got them into cannabis. But for me, I've been breeding here locally for the last 6 years and a little bit before that, and it's pretty much my greatest passion in life. I love growing a lot of cannabis and weed, and that's really important to me. Production is great, but really interacting with the plants and getting to understand and see the progress that you can make is really what makes me tick. So that's a little bit about me. I wish we had 4 hours to do this, but we have 45 minutes. So we're gonna cram it, and we've got a lot of knowledge on this table. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and we'll go from there.
I'm Mean Gene. I breed for Aficionado Seeds and Freeborn Selections. And like you said, I'm just interested in seeing where the genetics go and keeping things preserved and trying to improve stuff and keep it around at the same time. So that's basically that.
Hey, I'm Mike. I'm here with the Emerald Cup Genetics team. As some of you may or may not know, we are affiliated with the Emerald Cup, the event that's been going on for 13 years right now. And basically, we formed this team because we had seen so many quality flowers and entries come in over the years. So what we did was reach out to some of those growers and have them bring some of their seeds out from the hills and bring them to you guys so that other people can grow them and use the genetics themselves. I've been working with genetics and genes for the past 5 years, but heading up the Emerald Cup Genetics team over the past year.
Hi, I'm Brian. My breeder name is Dragon with Matches. I'm a founding member of Emerald Family Farms. I live in Willow Creek area, 40-acre farm. I dabble with indoor, outdoor, light dap, but breeding really is my passion at this point. I feel like most people can grow a flower or a plant, but the breeding really sticks around. Something can help people throughout their entire lives, perhaps. I started breeding about 8 years ago. This is my 20th year in the cannabis industry, and I'm pretty happy about that. I guess that's about it.
Sweet. So, like I said, I wanted to have 4 hours to do this. That wasn't gonna happen. So I'm just gonna run through some stuff, and when we get to the important stuff, we're gonna let everybody, jump in wherever you guys think and whenever anybody wants to put some input. So basically what's important in the industry, just common sense stuff, is really just about having integrity and understanding what you're working with in your genetics and being upfront with what those genetics are. Pretty sure everybody on this panel is an organic farmer, which I think is great. And then pretty much honesty, really testing your work and understanding what's in there. If you're gonna be offering seeds to patients, whether it's for their medical benefit or for production, it could be someone's livelihood or somebody's life. There's a lot of diversity in cannabis genetics compared to wine. Cannabis is thousands of times more diverse. So it's just important to be honest and understanding the genetics that you're working with. I'll get into breeding techniques. The most two important, purposes of breeding, there are really only two purposes in my mind, and one of those is preservation, and the other one is improvement, because the whole intention is to preserve genetics for the future and to improve them at the same time. So I'd love for these guys to kind of chime in, jump in, and really anything that you want to discuss and that we can share with you guys regarding any of that.
Okay, I'm going to touch on that. Preservation and improvement. Preserving a strain is a gene pool is something that needs to be done with a large number of plants, and you need to do what's called an open pollination, where you actually take all of the males and all of the females and you breed with them. And to do that, you actually, in a lot of cases, need to collect the pollen separately to be able to mix it together so that you don't just get all the seeds from the first male seeding all of the females, and then you just wind up with stuff from the first male. Improvement is, if you're going to improve a strain, it's hard to improve a strain and preserve it in its entirety at the same time. As soon as you start to improve things, that's when you're going to go in lines. You're going to say, okay, we want this from a strain. And anytime you're making an improvement with anything, it's going to be perspective and opinion based. So if you have a strain and you say, okay, well, this is the one I like, then for improvement, you want to figure out how you're going to get to that goal, which is, saying, okay, I want this one that just has this smell or this effect or grows this way or has a resistance to a pest or a pathogen or something like that. But if you're going to preserve things, you really have to keep the whole thing around. So you want to have two things. You want to have the strains that you start with that have everything in it, and then you want to have the improved lines that come out of it. But you don't want to wind up with just the improved lines, because you'll lose the original diversity you had in the gene pool. So that's the most important point that I really see on preservation and improvement. And in improvement, like I said, it all comes down to what is your own opinion of where you're trying to go to improve a strain. Whereas preservation isn't as opinion based. It's just you're preserving the whole thing. It's really all there. It's not.
Preservation, to me, I think that we need to quit polyhybriding, quit crossing, quit throwing out these F1s everywhere. We need to take it back to the land race, start over. It's kind of in the 90s when the OG thing came, everybody just started breeding towards that one direction. We need to get away from that. There's a lot of other things out there, a lot of wonderful terps, a lot of health benefits. I think that we need to embrace the work that the real cannabis trailblazers have laid out for us. They've done a lot of work for us in the past, way before there was gray areas and safety in numbers. And I think that that is a test of their integrity alone.
I'd also like to add on that with integrity, and with us specifically, it's about providing quality genetics, genetics that are consistent and can be grown organically and meet the demands of the market that are coming up upon us, and the guidelines. So there's flowers, there's hash, there's concentrates, and there's medicinals, and each plant, each strain itself has a different value and a different use for different things like that. And we use these organic methods and farming practices in order to test the strength of the plants and really get to know how the plant will react to certain diseases and fungals, and through so much testing. And I think that's a really good thing to be able to do, is lots of testing and hold your values in what it is that you're actually doing.
Sweet. Cool. So what I'd like to do, maybe to make the most of this time that I think it would be the most valuable for everybody here educationally, is if we all discuss what our actual breeding methods are and some of the things that we do to make our selections. I'll spend just a few minutes. I'll try to be quick so everybody can have some time to share. Everybody sound cool with that? Yeah. Okay, sweet. So, obviously when I started off, I had to build a gene pool and start from somewhere. And so I'd been collecting genetics for years and years, had spent ridiculous amounts of, time and money collecting all these things. And finally, when I had the chance to go through them, essentially I was starting my gene pool. And what I wanted to do was take all of my favorite genetics and try to basically create varieties of those that were similar to those from seed, and at the same time create some completely new things that I can enjoy myself. Well, this is going back 6 years, and I've evolved quite a bit, from that. And so basically, I started off pollinating an individual plant or an individual branch with a male that I selected from, I don't know, maybe, 20 or 30 seeds or something like that. At this point, we've now been offering our products in Humboldt County and throughout, the area to patients for 5 years. And we've been learning so much every year, which is so important, like how much you can learn. So really quickly, I'll run you through what we do now is when we have a strain, if it's a line that we're working and we're trying to, improve it and and preserve it the next generation, we'll start minimum 50 seeds or so of that variety. If we have the space and ability, we start 100. And then going through that, we're going to make our male selections based on all the things that we're looking for, desired traits. All of the above is what I say is that you want vigor, you want yield, you want density, you want potency, you want terpenes, you want a great effect, you want something that is strong, naturally resistant to pests. Pretty much anything that's good in cannabis is what you want to find in genetics. And if you work hard enough and you're diligent and obsessed enough, I think that you can create that in a lot of different lines. And so like Gene was talking about the open pollinations, the best way for us to preserve the top, of the genetics, we basically emulated what orchid breeding would do, is where you would start 2,000 seeds of a strain and you're looking for the top 5th percentile, the best of those genetics, to open pollinate into each other. And so from 2,000 plants, you have maybe your 5 males and your 5 females, and you're putting those together and you're knowing that that's going to be the top upper echelon of those genetics. We just kind of replicate that on a smaller scale. So basically, if we start with 50 seeds of a variety that we've been working for several generations, we'll select the best 2 or 3 males, knowing that those offer the best of what's in those genetics, and then we'll open pollinate the entire female generation that we have from we're talking 25, 30 individual plants, and then any clones that we're creating back crosses to or new hybrids with. Then when we're done with that run, we can look through the females and we can say, oh, cool, these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 6 females out of 30, that is beautiful. Anybody would enjoy this cannabis. This is what we were looking for. And we know with the males that we've selected, being the top 3 from the 25 or 30 minimum, we feel very confident and strong. So that's basically the open pollination techniques is going to preserve it for, and have what's best in those genetics without risking watering it down and still preserving, the diversity of what's in there at the same time.
So yeah, like you said, you want to start with in a lot of cases, especially if you're working on improvement, you want to start with more than you're actually going to be wanting. If you have the ability to start 1,000 plants and go through all of them and go ahead and look, when everything is, if you want plants to be bigger, which in most cases most of us do, when you start your plants, you're going to be looking through going, okay, well, these ones, they're not as big. This one over here, it got attacked by bugs. This one gets this gets that. Any problems that you have when you're trying to work for improvement, you want to make sure that you go ahead and cull those out and say, okay, well, these are the ones that we can see something that we don't want. And then at the same time, you want to look for everything that that you do want. And as you go through, you need to make sure that as you go to make your improvements, you want to have enough plants that you don't have to settle. So if you have a list of 5 things that you want to find the plants to breed that match those 5 things that you really want from it. You don't want to go, okay, well, this one's got 3 of them, so that's good enough. If you have to, then you have to use that as your starting point. But when you want to be able to look through your plants and see, okay, here, these ones match everything. This is as close to our goals as we can possibly get. These are the individuals. And then, if it's possible, it's ideal to be able to clone every plant that you have so that you can try this male in combination with this female. Basically, like a good trick is to take, of all the males you want to breed, take a clone of all the males, and of all the females, take a clone of all the females, and then to actually be able to do this male, a copy of this male with a copy of every female, a copy of this male with a copy of every female. And then when you have your final seeds, when you wind up with them, you'll have every possible combination. So you'll be able to, you'll have your best odds of being able to look at, okay, well, what did this one do? What did that one do? Then when you grow out the actual seeds, you want to look for the ones that are meeting the goal that you set out, whether you were looking for an early one or you were looking for, the most terpene production, the most, drug production, CBD, CBG, THC, whatever you're looking for. Other than really, for me, I'd say that's basically the best technique so that you can really have the ability to know every combination, because one male with one female, the way that they actually link in the genetics, they're not necessarily that's not necessarily the best one, and you can't really just look and see it automatically. So if you have the ability to do that, that's ideal. That's the very best way you can do it. If you can't do that, then you just have to get as close to that as you can. So it'd be nice to at least have all your females that you really like are cloned and set aside. You go, okay, this one was exceptional. That's the number 4. This male was the good one. Name that male, and be able to then too, if you find something you really like, you can recreate it endlessly from those pairs of clones if you really want, you know. And then from there, it's really testing and seeing which ones did what you were hoping they would do, and repeating the process until you reach that goal. It might happen in 2 generations, it might happen in 12 generations, but you got to have that goal set, and then you got to try to go for it.
So real quick, the type of selection process that he's talking about, you have to devote your whole life to caring about cannabis to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, and that's
Really
the ideal.
cool.
So it's basically, if you can achieve that, then that's what is ideal. I'm not saying that that's what I'm going to do every time, but if I do see a really ideal female that seems like everything I want, I'm going to make sure I clone it, and I'm going to make sure that I have seeds where I can, you know, pull males to put on that female to try to see if I can recreate that, so those same traits in a seed form, you know. But it doesn't mean you have to have 1,000 plants and you have to clone 1,000 plants. You might only have one cloned female, and you might try breeding it with different males along the way to see what you get. And that would be that's the slimmed down version of that. That's all the way to the slim to having hundreds or thousands of clones and being able to do it that way. But those, you know, that's the ideal way. Yeah.
Yeah, I really agree with Gina. It's really about testing, and we're working with a strain right now, the pineapple Afghani, where we started actually 1,000 seeds, and we narrowed it down to 2 specific males that we were really looking for, and about 5 or 6 different females. And we've been working on this over the past years to bring stability to this strain. And a lot of it really comes down to is intuition and lots of testing and just a good eye for detail. I mean, a lot of times I can just look out of all these plants and really see the ones that are going to stand out just by structure and vigor and the height that they're growing. And even just by giving the stem rub, you can really kind of see what the strains are actually going to produce. And as he was saying, it takes a lot of time to do all this and a lot of detail and a lot of effort. But when you get down to your final product and you're making your seeds, and then you make all those new seeds and you're seeing, wow, okay, after working this for 3 or 4 years, you can see that there's maybe only 2 varying phenotypes that are mold resistant and pest resistant. And like the pineapple Afghani finishes 3rd week of September. Okay, it's an incredible plant, has fruity, really strong smell, real strong on the stone, and it's just lots of testing is really what it's all about.
When I got serious about breeding and I bred my first F1, I really used my outdoor crop to help me pick phenos. I would take cuts off of every plant that I had outside, and I would grow those out, and I would do whatever kind of testing that I wanted to do. Like Dan said, I usually pick what I don't want Jackson said I pick what I don't want first, because that's kind of usually the easiest thing you can do. It's kind of like the medical field, the medical industry. They're not going to tell you what you have, they're going to tell you what you don't have. So therefore, I go from there. You know, with the males, I'll put them through the most stress tests that they've ever had. You know, put them in small pots. I won't feed them. I'll cram them together, you know, and then whichever one makes it through that 6-month trial, that's the dude right there. And then with the females, same, it depends on what I'm breeding, you know. Do I need strength? Am I looking for something for commercial? My eyes, my nose, and my touch are 3 of my best assets on that choice there. Let's see. I guess that's really what I have to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the selection process is also really, really important when we're looking for our upper echelon, and the effort and the detail that everybody's talking about. You know, we just recently did our male selections, you know, for the project we're doing currently, where we have a lot of males to go through. 2 days after staying up till 2 in the morning, my nose underneath is literally bleeding from rubbing on the stems of these males. And a lot of the times you get so attached to your plants that even killing, you know, some of them can be really hard when you narrow it down and you have 6 and you only need 3, and you know the phenotypes, and you can tell from the shape of the leaf pattern that this one is so much like the male and is going to add the density, but you're really looking for the female that you want to preserve, and this one is showing all the traits of that. And sometimes you have one that doesn't have the vigor, but it smells so good, and you know that the quality might be amazing, but you just can't use it if it doesn't have the vigor. So those are the sorts of things that we all really need to think about, and it's a lot of detail. The cannabis genetics that a lot of you guys are growing in your gardens, there's so much life's work and detail that these groups and a lot of the other local groups around here have put into it. I think it's important for you guys to know. And I know that a lot of us would like to see people making their own seeds at home in their gardens and preserving things and creating their own lines. What I'd like to do next is have everybody kind of tell the story of a variety or strain that they've created or worked. We'll start at the other end of the table with Brian, and let's all just talk about a strain that we've created, that we've put a lot of love and energy and time into, that's special, that we're able to share with people, and start that way and work our way over.
Well, I'm really proud of my Yeti OG. It was the first strain that I ever bred, and I've just really stuck with it, put as much time as I could into it. We were lucky enough last year, 2014, to win 11th place at the Emerald Cup. The male is Black Dominia crossed with Humboldt Snow or Snowbud. The Black Dominia is a Sensi seed bank strain comes from the mother is Afghanica, and then the Snowbud. If you're familiar with the Snowbud, that's been around Humboldt County for a long time. It's a staple. Not really a lot of information about that strain, which kind of goes back to documentation and how that can help us. The mom is a clone only. It was a really choice cut of headband. Since then, it's been renamed a few times, but we're just going to go with calling it a nice choice cut of headband. The effects that it has, it's real stony, obviously. It's tested up as high as 30%. Grows real big, real tall. That's why I named it the Yeti. All my strains I've bred for outdoor in Northeast Humboldt specifically. With the Yeti, it has that OG stacking method, so you're not going to get that bud rot. Because any OG, as you know, is going to go into mid-October. And if you have the weather, go to November 1st if you can. The Yeti OG's pretty well known at this point. I just watched a documentary the other day on the History Channel, and in the background in somebody's grow room there was a tag that said Yeti OG. I was pretty excited about that. I'm passionate about all the strains that I bred. And I'm really, really happy to get them out there and let everybody know what I've done.
Very good. One of our strains, and it's our flagship strain, is also an OG. It's the Emerald Cup OG. So that clone was kind of around Mendocino. It was called the Fire OG. It's not the Fire OG that's out right now. This is about 10 or 12 years old from now. And we took that and put it into a Purple Haze male and then bred it all the way to the 7th generation, so that we only had the original OG characteristics that were in the clone. And then we took that 7th generation and we put that back into the original mother and then brought it back out a couple more generations. And what we found with that is that we have stabilized seeds. So you'll pop 100 seeds and you'll find two varying phenotypes that are so close. They're both harvested October 12th to the 13th, 53 days in the light depth. And it has that perfect OG smell. I mean, even in vegetative growth during the summertime, you could smell the OG in the plant just itself by walking into the garden. And it's really open structure, nice tight knots going all the way through, really mold resistant. It doesn't really like a lot of feeding, otherwise it might get a little bit of the PM, but it's just an incredible strain, really easy, vigor. One of the great characteristics of this plant is that your bottom branches will just run all the way to the top. Whether you top it or not, they'll catch up. It's one of the strong qualities that we have in that plant. And sometimes even just the very bottom branches will be bigger than some of the stalks of the plants that we have in our garden. And that's really something that we pride ourselves in, is just stabilizing these genetics and really working the lines in order to create a consistent product.
I guess I'm going to talk about one that I call Jarro, which is a cool one to me because it kind of wound up being everything that I really want from a plant, especially growing in big containers outdoor. I started with a Hindu Kush clone and black Afghani male. And then from that, I pulled a male from that cross, and I put it on the OG Kush that they call PK. And then without stabilizing that, I pulled a male out of that, and I put it onto a sour diesel. And then once I had that hybrid, I selected from it a couple times for the middle ground. So basically a diesel-sized plant with buds on it that are basically like a Hindu Kush black Afghani, where they're giant and hard. They're like this bottle on the end of every branch, really easy to trim. And then the weed is all the quality of, like, everything's over 20% THC. It all tastes really, really nice. It's really earthy. It smells kind of like a black licorice OG diesel smell. And the reason why I bring that one up is because it's a cool plant, because you have a monster plant that'll do in a big pot. It can do between 5 and 12 pounds depending on the size of the pot. So if you put something in like a 300-gallon pot, it's really easy with one of these plants, if it's grown right, with hardly being fed, they'll do 8 pounds, 10 pounds. And the product that you wind up with is comparable to a sour diesel or an OG Kush, where somebody says, oh, I only like sour diesel, or I only like OG Kush, and you go, well, take a look at this, and they'll go, oh, okay, well, I'll take that too, I like that too. So it's just a cool one for me because it's got the market value. As my own personal preference, it's one of my favorites to smoke, and it is, bred with a diesel, which I don't really like to trim. I don't like the way the flower really grows that much, but I do like the resin style of it. So it's like it has the best of everything. It's got the big buds from the Afghani, it's got the big plant from the diesel, and it's got the real heavy, nice resin from the diesel and the OG mixed together. And some of them get the nice color from the black Afghani. So just in breeding, that's like something that's cool if you're going to hybridize something, to wind up with the good things from each strain, as opposed to a mix of it but not getting any of the things that you wanted from it. So
Sweet. Awesome. So yeah, I'll talk about one of my strains. The thing that I love about cannabis genetics is every strain can have a story, and I love hearing those stories, and I like telling them. I'll just kind of go back to the background of our most popular variety is our double OG sour, and it's essentially, we wanted to create a variety of OG Kush from seed that yields like a beast and has all the qualities that you look for, and less susceptibility to powder mildew, and really actually preserves the flavor that you want. So the story of it, and every strain has a story. I saw something online. These guys had these OG sour diesel genetics from seed, and they're kind of hyped up, and everybody was talking about them, and I really, really wanted them, and there was a very limited amount of them. I didn't get them. And these guys in Canada got them, and about 6 months later, they had posted some results online. And I saw this flower grown indoors, and it was like my arm, this huge freaking bud, and it looked identical to this sour diesel seed line that I had grown in 2007 that was, to this day, some of the tastiest flowers with these platinum, just frosty crystals. And I was looking at it, and I wrote the guy a little note and was like, man, that is beautiful. That's the type of herb that I want to grow. That's what I want to smoke. And he's like, well, we found an amazing male in there, and we made a whole bunch of seeds, and I'm happy to share some with you. And so sent me some seeds from Canada, and I sent him some genetics that I've been working on here in Humboldt. And that year for seed selection, I started 600 seeds in the summer just to look for males. From those 600 seeds, I whittled them down to 38 seeds, or 38 males. From those 38 males, we ended up using 11 breeding. Of those 11 breeding, I had this OG sour male. It was a beast, and it had these huge male flowers that were like this, which I'd really never seen male flowers get that big. They had trichomes on them. I made a ton of different hybrids with it. When we tested out those hybrids, everything it touched was rock hard dense, was really frosty. It was a little bit, mild in the flavor department. Not mild, but it just wasn't extreme sour or OG as much as, You know, like the females from that line, actually, from those same pack of seeds, in 2011, one of those females was 10th place in the Emerald Cup. And that was one of the ones that I thought was more mild in flavor, and it did pretty well. So basically, that same year, one of my neighbors gave me a cut of OG Kush. He said, my buyers from LA came up 12 years ago. They said, this is OG Kush, grow this for us. And so that's what he'd been growing as OG for 12 years. And so I took that male, put it into that OG Kush. When I grew out those seeds, you know, I didn't even do that much of the work except for finding a really nice male, but those seeds grew incredible OG plants from seed. I was stoked about it. It was everything I could have wanted. It had the beefy yield. I've got pictures where I compare the first generation of the hybrid, which was already a back cross that I made, where the flowers are exactly identical in the look, but my flowers were arm size, and the OG mom is, you know, a third the size and doesn't have the density. And so basically over a series of years to preserve that, I'd basically start the genetics, look for, you know, the expressions that I'm looking for in the male that I'm used to finding in the females that I want. Now we're several years into playing and making selections with it, and you know, every year that we work with it, I think we're actually able to improve it. And so that's just a little bit of the background about it. You know, I've done a whole lot of work in the last 4 years since then, developing it and continuing it and making it better, and you know, continuing to back cross it. Now we can look at it and we have probably 3 or 4 generations of in crosses and several different back crosses to different OGs and all these hybrids. So the double OG sour, it's just a cool story when you can really understand the lineage and the story and where did this shit really come from and what was the work this guy did. So that's that. What do you guys think next? What should we do to cover the rest of our time? We've got about 15 minutes. I think we should kind of push into the next, you know, topic, because I think the next one is political stuff or something like that. Question?
I try to come up with a question you guys might want to answer. To create the very best seeds for your customers, for your friends, what do you feed your plants and why?
I'll give a quick answer and then I'll let everyone run through. I try to feed my seed stuff usually less and just do mostly organic teas. Keep up a little bit of preventative sprays for pesticides. That's all organic. And usually do minimum feeding on the males. With the females, I just try to alternate a bunch of diverse organic methods. You know, without getting too much into it, I'll let these guys go through.
Feeding wise, like he was saying with the males, I like to stress them for periods. I might not stress them the whole time. I might nurse them back so that they get nice and healthy. But I do like to see what they do when they're root bound. I like to see what they do when they're underwatered a little bit, because that tends to show you which ones are more susceptible to the powdery mildew and bugs and everything. If a plant's a little bit less healthy, then you see what it gets attacked by. If you keep it too healthy all the time while you're breeding, you're not really going to see, you know, what gets this plant, you know. So with the females, I'm pretty simple. I tend to take used dirt, and in some cases I won't even re-amend it, and I'll top feed a little bit. And if they can perform well like that, then I'll usually be pretty happy with how they come out. You know, if I don't worry too much. I mean, I make sure that they're healthy, because you want your seeds to be really healthy and robust, but at the same time, I don't want to fool myself and, you know, give it all this stuff and go, oh, wow, look at that. That's an incredible plant. And as soon as somebody grows it and they don't give it quite as nice of a feeding regimen, then all of a sudden what's wrong with this thing, you know? So I like to give it kind of a middle ground, light, not a whole lot of stuff. As opposed to if I'm growing for flower, I use a really heavy amended soil mix. But when I usually do for seeds, especially if it's just a preservation project and not something that's actually going to be seeds that go to market or anything, then yeah, really minimal. I hardly feed them at all.
We'll actually do a combination of both. We'll take clones of the females that we like and would like to work with, and we'll subject them to both underfeeding and overfeeding, whether we're putting, you know, handfuls and handfuls of guano on a plant and see if is it going to burn, is it going to affect the finished product as it comes out during the flower, and then we'll subject these plants to the light depths, and then we can really see, you know, in that 50 or 60 days what the plant is going to do. Is it going to start to produce mold and mildew based on giving it too much food or not giving it enough food? You know, is it going to be too green? How fast is it going to lose its color? And different things like that. And it's just all about the testing, really. Different types of soil that we use. Sometimes we'll just throw it in just cocoa, or just put them in just a non-amended dirt, or just bag soil. And we just see how each clone and how each variety really reacts to the different situations that we put in. You know, we have plants outside that have just been sitting out in the cold, not even in the greenhouse, just kind of tucked away. And last night we had frost up at our place in Laytonville. So I went out there this morning, and some of them really took a beating to that, where other ones were still up shining early in the morning. So that's like one of the really testers that we can see, is just, you know, subjecting you to everything, every condition that's possible.
Yeah, I'm really hard on my males. I really don't feed them much at all. I maybe a couple top dresses while I'm testing them. Then when I find the one that I'm going to use, I really start feeding it properly, so I have a nice healthy male. The females, generally the females that I'm using, I know their characteristics. I know what I'm going to get out of it, so I can really just treat them the way they should be treated. But again, mostly top dressing, real light tea feedings. But I really keep my moms and my males underfed, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, maybe we take the rest of this time and do some Q&A, you know, field some people's questions.
No worries. Nomenclature is one of the big problems here. I know you guys all have really great seeds, but my problem is I don't know your original genetics, and then all these strain names change, and every time there's an Emerald Cup, the strain changes. And now we have the ag department's going to be taking over seed labeling. How do I, as a consumer, understand what your genetics are, and how is that going to translate to what the ag department is going to start requiring you to label your seeds?
That's a really good question. Well, the first thing that I would say is due diligence and research on the genetics and the breeders. You know, breeders who are doing good work will put out a lot of information or be available, you know, themselves. I mean, all four of us will be here at our booths. If you have a question about our genetics, come and ask us. I'm sure that everybody here is happy to break down the history and explain what's in there. As far as ag regulations, I hate the politics. I watch from the sidelines and try to stay out of it. Pretty much there's going to be tags on every single plant. People are going to be trademarking genetics. It's going to be a bunch of bullshit. But we're all going to adapt, you know, and there's the reason that everything needs to be done. So I can't really, you know, answer much of that. But you know, research the genetics that you're going to grow. If you're going to put steak and putting them in your grow room or in your garden outside, you know, just contact the breeder, you know, ask them. And if they don't know what they're talking about, then probably don't trust them, you know.
Research it like you're researching your car, a new car, you know, or a new home. You want to make sure you have every angle. You know, is the breeder reputable? Is the organization that he's with reputable? Has he or she been around for a while? Does he take good notes? Because that's really kind of a little tip on how good of a breeder you are, or how confident you are. Because if you're not writing stuff down, maybe you're keeping it a secret for a reason. So I think that, like Dan said, you really just gotta focus on doing your research, do your homework.
Question?
Genetics panel. It was interesting because he had a different perspective on the diversity. He basically said, will you please stop crossing OG Kush with everything?
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you guys to, you know, respond to his kind of...
Sure, I feel you. I mean, OG dominates the California market. I like smoking sour diesels the most, preferably. But, you know, a lot of old school guys who've been around, they miss their sativas and their hazes. What I try to do is offer a diversity of genetics. We have some ridiculous, you know, super silver haze dominant stuff that's crazy equatorial sativa and will flower 14 weeks and give you a psychedelic, you know, experience. It does not make sense production-wise for most people. So, you know, I think most of the people on here probably have a lot of diversity in what we're working on. It just so happens that people want the OG. So we have to have the best OG for people, but, you know, I think everybody here has a lot of diversity in their genes as well.
We got a question here, Ganjier.
Yeah.
It kind of ties in with that one, what you guys were talking about, but how would you say that breeders and farmers around here can do a little bit more to have control over, you know, what they think is best for the market, rather than the market saying like, hey, we want OGs? Because I feel like people outside of here, they don't get how hard it is to grow OGs. And if you're right next to the coast, you know, it's like you're gonna have a bunch of trouble. And for someone like me, I'm a little bit younger, so I haven't really had to have a lot of experience with those 16 weekers and like the older strains, and I want to see some of those and experience.
Yeah, grow those for fun for now, you know? Anybody got an, but, and she had a question down there. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that first.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. It's just those 14 weekers are great, you know. There's so much great genetics in there, but it's really hard in our climate to grow anything like that. Now, if you're doing it indoor, you could do it indoor. You better have some high ceilings and a big pocket full of money for that PG&E bill.
Yeah, I mean that's with sorry, Penny. With any agricultural product, it's a problem. The market is gonna really decide what the market wants, you know. So it's like if you're gonna go into production, you know, selling any kind of a thing, you're gonna have to find out. In like with tomatoes, there's going to be maybe 2 or 3 kinds of tomatoes that you're going to be able to sell. When you go into a store, they're not going to have 16 kinds of tomatoes. There's probably hundreds of kinds of tomatoes, and there probably used to be thousands. But as people, most people who farm, they wind up farming in a lot of cases to wind up feeding their family. So you get people going, okay, well, what can I actually grow to get rid of? And then when people show up and they say, oh, well, I'm going to take your product, they're typically not like, oh, well, what's the weird stuff you got? You know, where's the 20-week Cambodian or something like that? They're not going to. So people are naturally always going to want to get those seeds that fit the market. So with like a project like he's talking about, he's saying, okay, well, he's got seeds that are going to grow something that in a bag you can say, hey, OG, and people will go, oh, it's OG, it's an OG phenotype. Although the background of it is just different enough from the OG clones that when you grow it, you're going to go, wow, I actually got a good plant this time, and it wasn't a huge pain in my ass to grow, you know. And some people have maybe an OG that'll finish in September instead of pushing all the way almost till November, and one that's mildew resistant instead of one that's just going to get attacked. Like, you know, OG, it breaks, it falls over, it gets attacked by mildew. You know, it's good on bud mold, and it produces a ton of resin and a ton of terpenes, and it's really, really stony, and people love it. But yeah, I mean, with improvement, that's like something that he has. Like his double OG sour, I can say it's beautiful weed, and like he's saying, you get 3 times as fat of buds on a plant that grows bigger and is more resistant, you know, and that's what he's working towards every year to get something like that. Or when I was talking about Jarro, it's like you look at it and you go, ooh, this is like a Kush with a little bit of black licorice flavor, but when you grow the plant, you go, damn, this thing grows. It's not like, okay, well, what am I doing here? So, I mean.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Question?
I know that a lot of people have been having problems with the russet mite or all the other things they call it, right? As breeders, how are you safeguarding your stock and your seeds? Because I've heard that it can actually travel on seeds too. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, if I was making seeds in a place where I knew that the plants were compromised and they had russet mites, the seeds are pretty much, I'd have to say the seeds are no good now, you know? And, you know, there's probably treatments you could do. You could probably treat the seeds. I'm not sure what you could do for that, but if you had something really valuable, you wanted to save it, there's probably ways to save it. But yeah, it's a good thing to know that a russet mite larva will actually attach themselves to the seeds. And if you look, I've actually seen it before, when you look around the seed has a pointy side and a side that I call the volcano, you know, that's the ring where it attaches. And if you look right around the edge with a loop, you can see that, okay, there's bugs on this. And if you have seeds like that, you know, like if somebody gives me seeds and I don't know them, I'm going to take them home and I'm going to look at every seed, as crazy as that is, I'm going to look at that with a 60 times loop and sit there and look at the volcano and look all the way around and really make sure that they're clean. And I'm still a little bit paranoid about getting seeds from anybody, you know? But like, you know, when I produce seeds, I'm going to make sure the plant has no signs of anything like that. And I'm going to make sure that I'm actually screening a percentage of the seeds to make sure that, okay, nothing got past my attention. But that's really the best you can do other than maybe treating the seeds. And, you know, you have to figure out it's probably a good thing for everybody to figure out. What do you treat them with? Can you shake them around in sulfur for a couple days? Or, I know sulfur powder is really good to kill russet mites. That's what they use in the wine industry for russet mites. So there's a way around it, but yeah, I mean, if somebody, if you talk to a breeder and they say, oh yeah, my plants had russet mites, then you probably don't want to grow their seeds,
That was some super knowledge right there. That was good. That was good.
So Ganjier Dan, maybe one more question?
Yeah, well, no, we got time for more questions.
Oh, hi. For those of us who got in late, could you all say your names again and your farms? And are you selling the seeds that or exchanging them in your booths today?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm Dan from Rebel Grown. We're a local collective in Humboldt County, right here in Sohum. We used to be called Ganjier Rebel Seeds. And we're here, we're vending seeds to patients who are collective members.
I'm Gene, and I work with Aficionado Seeds and Freeborn Selections, and we might have some seeds available down at the booth. There was some at the start of the day, but we'll see if they're down there. There wasn't many.
I'm Mike, and I'm with the Emerald Cup Genetics, and we're affiliated with the Emerald Cup event. We are partnered with Healing Harvest Farms, and we have a booth right over there by the VIP tent, and we're currently offering about 9 varieties today.
I'm Brian. I'm from Emerald Family Farms, and we have a booth down in the area down there. We're based out of northern Humboldt.
So it's 11:47. We're supposed to go till 11:45. I say we push this straight to 12. Can we do that? No? We're getting cut?
Got a few.
Okay.
Got a few setups for the next
all right, whatever.
presenter.
All right, well, anyway, I guess I'll wrap it up. And, I just want to thank Ganjier, for having these events. This is pretty much the coolest thing for me that I could ever do in my life is get to talk to cannabis growers about genetics and share my genetics and get to have guys like this and do something like this. Another quick thing is we decided last minute we're going to do a joint rolling competition at Rebel Grown booth, and we just want people to come and roll lots of joints. And then at 4:20, let's all set them on fire and smoke all the joints. So, and I was figuring we could start a maybe tradition, for the spring kickoff and do the joint rolling competition and set them all on fire at 4:20 every day or every year.
The new Burning Man.
Let's give it up
The new Burning Man.
for Ganjier Rebel Dan, Mean Gene, Mike, and Brian. Thank you, gentlemen. Very educational.